Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to join us.
My name is Sam, and I'll be facilitating today's online event.
I will now hand you over to our first speaker, Ian Abbs, Medical Director, Guy's and St Thomas NHS Foundation Trust.
Hello, my name is Dr. Ian Abbs, and I'm a renal physician. For the last 10 years, I've held a number of leadership and management positions in healthcare in London. I'm currently the Medical Director at Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust in London. This is an executive board level position at Guy's and St Thomas's, which is a large teaching hospital linked to King's College London. We look after patients with a wide range of issues, from complex tertiary care, including transplantation, through secondary and community care for the local population of Lambeth and Southwark. We have approximately 2 million patient contacts a year and employ 15,000 staff with an approximate turnover of £1.3 billion annually. I thought it might be helpful to tell you a bit about my career story. Over my time in leadership and management, I've had a number of roles. These include being a clinical director, running a business unit for renal transplantation and neurology services. I've been a divisional director running tertiary services at Guy's and St Thomas's, with everything from cardiac services through to pediatric services. I was a member of the initial executive of the Academic Health Sciences Centre here, King's Health Partners, and worked on its early development and led part of the bid that was successful when we became an HSC. And I've also spent time as a turnaround medical director at another trust in London. Much of what we do as clinicians is based on a good understanding of anatomy and physiology and of the pathophysiology of the human body. However, in my management and leadership career to date, I hadn't had any education on how organizations are put together, how they work, and what happens when they go wrong. And it was really that desire to understand the evidence around management practice, to get some of the technical skills needed to run a large, complex organization, and to think about my personal development, that I decided to undertake an MBA. I wanted to find out in an academic setting what evidence there was for the things that work in large organizations, particularly in an academic setting, and to think through how organizations work and how to diagnose and treat issues when organizations don't work so well. And I particularly wanted to reflect on my own practice as a leader and manager. So I was very pleased to be accepted on the MBA program at Cambridge. And I think the program at Cambridge has given me a number of advantages. It certainly fulfilled my expectations of an academically based course where I could get experience of technical and softer skills required to lead a complex organization. One of the highlights for me was the composition of the class. It was a really diverse class with colleagues from many backgrounds and nationalities, and I think I learned as much from them as I did from the formal faculty. My time at Judge helped me to see with greater clarity my role in the organization and how I could better deliver both my personal priorities and those of the organization. I'm particularly interested in strategy, and I focused a lot on some of the strategy work that we did in Cambridge, and there was a direct read across from that academic work with the work that I'm now leading at Guy's and St Thomas's and within King's Health Partners on our 5-year strategy. I'm taking an active part in developing and delivering that, and there's certainly been a huge amount that I've learned from the Cambridge program. I think I gained a lot from Cambridge and believe that my organization has benefited from the things that I learnt at Judge.
Thanks, Ian. I will now hand you over to Antonio Vidal Puig, Scientific Director, Cambridge Phenomics Centre at University of Cambridge.
Hello, my name is Antonio Vidal Puig. I'm a professor at the University of Cambridge, and my interest is in metabolic medicine. And I've been invited to give this webinar because I am a member of the EMBA at Cambridge University. And I think what I can talk about is how, being an academic scientist, I have been interested in doing an EMBA and what are the type of benefits that we get from this. I think for you to understand where I'm coming from, I will expand a bit on what we do, and so then I will try to explain how doing an MBA may be helpful to us. So my lab I have a laboratory in an academic institution in Cambridge, and our main interest is obesity. And we're interested in obesity from two different points of view. We want to understand what is the cause of obesity, but also we want to understand why being obese causes problems like diabetes, atherosclerosis, or cardiovascular problems. In some way, this is a problem that affects many people, that creates a lot of health problems, but also financially is very difficult to maintain for a national health service. The other thing I would say is that, I'm coming from a background which is basic science. We work, for example, in things like the adipose tissue of human beings and how the adipose tissue is affected by inflammation in the context of obesity. And our interest involves the adipose tissue, the muscle, the liver, the arteries. And we use tools that are very advanced, including genetically modified animal models or DNA sequencing and genetics, as well as vascular biology or in vivo models. What I'm trying to say is that we are coming from basic science and getting close to an interest in an MBA. The other thing I would like to mention is that we have an interest in public health and how, for example, obesity interacts with smoking, hypertension, or cholesterol. And we have this type of idea that 2 + 2 is equal 8. And when I talk to my patients, what I tell them is that being obese is bad, but if you smoke or you have hypertension or high cholesterol, it's even worse, because you may have problems that may kill you. In this regard, what I'm saying is I am a basic scientist doing clinical translational medicine. When people are in academia, they think that their main interest is research. However, over the years, and as I have developed my academic career, I have come to realize that research-intensive institutions are institutions that need to be properly managed to be successful. So one of my hobbies over my career has been trying to learn from failure. Failure around me, failure around other institutions, and trying to remain on top of the game to be successful. And what happened was that at some point, being successful enough to have enough time to take a little break in my focus and to open up into the concept of management, I got the opportunity to start an Executive MBA here in Cambridge. At the beginning, I would say that my colleagues were a little reluctant to the idea, and the questions was, are you fed up with science? Do you want to give up science? Are you losing interest in science? And my answer was, no. Actually, I think learning about management may help me to be more successful in my science. Because you need to understand that having a laboratory with people that are very talented and coming from all the different parts of the planet represents a management challenge. I need to deal with people coming from Malaysia, from Europe, from the United States, and they have their own personalities, their own cultures, their own point of view about science, and I need to help them to work together and to be productive. Also, when you think in science, you need to focus in financing. We need money to be able to do the type of research that we want. And we can apply for grants, but there is a strategy behind this, and we can improve the way how we obtain the funding that we need to be able to do our research. The other thing that really was bothering me for a while was the concept of global competition. Meaning we want to be on top of our game of doing research. We need to consider that we are not the only place in the planet where good research is being emerging countries are developing better science, then you have internet, you have computers, information is flying around. So it's much more difficult to remain on top of your game. And so this, I think, getting some insight from managerial knowledge that's coming from, that you could get through an MBA, can help you to develop some strategies that can help you to be more successful. The other thing I think is relevant, I never thought that I would say that a few years ago, is marketing. I mean, we need to do good research, but we need to be able to communicate this research appropriately. And this is very important for us to be able to be perceived as successful and being able to attract the funding that we need for the research that we want. Another concept that you need to consider, for example, is innovation. We currently need to work with other groups, with pharma industry, with biotech companies. We may even consider opening our own biotech company to capitalize on some of our findings. If you are a traditional scientist, this is like alien to you, and in some way you are scared of entering these type of territories that are quite uncertain to you. In this regard, an MBA can help you to empower you to be able to do things that you may want to do, but you are not keen in doing them because you don't feel confident or competent enough to do it. Concepts like open innovation mean many things to different people, but so an MBA really explains to you some of these concepts in a way that you can rationalize and allows you to have open innovation with specific companies and other type of stockholders. I think I have a list of other things that we do that I have benefited enormously from the MBA. I think this concept of entrepreneurship. Okay, well, when you're a scientist in academia, traditionally we have been allergic to think about entrepreneurship. We thought that we don't want to be affected by or be in contact with things that we didn't perceive as being clean enough. However, you change your mind, you see opportunities, you see that the value of the research that you may do, you may get more value from it and transfer this to society. So in summary, I think I'm a senior scientist. I'm considered to be successful in my science, and I have learned some of these things just by doing them in my environment. But this is mainly based on intuitive knowledge. And what an MBA has given to me is creating an intellectual framework that helped me to know that the directions of the decisions that I'm making are supported by some evidence and some rationale. And when you feel like this, that empowers you to make decisions that are more risky, but you can control the level of uncertainty by having knowledge. This is something that progressively it will be more incorporated into science, will be more incorporated into research institutions. I think at the present moment, the way how research institutions are being managed are based on your academic success, and that allows you to progress to positions where you have managerial roles. My perception, and after having had some experience doing this type of management, is that it is important to have some specific training that may help you to be more effective. I'm not saying that without it you cannot do it, but definitely my experience is that with this type of training, you may be able to do better, or you may be able to do things that under normal conditions you may be able to do. And in this final slide, a reference from a paper that is recently published, actually in press, where I thought that the title was quite revealing, and it's the concept that in the context of academic research, we're starting to talk about CEOs and commercialization of science and outsourcing. Well, that is debatable. People may have different points of view about it, but my perception is that, and I've been running my lab such, that you can run it with some of the knowledge that has been generated through other type of areas. And if you can actually adjust and adapt this to the demands of research-intensive institutions, then this is an area that should help to make better science and more valuable. And personally, I have developed also an academic interest that I hope to explore over the next few years, to try to learn a little more about what is a specific of a research institution that you need to keep in mind when you're managing them. At the present moment, my experience is that I'm borrowing from the experience in businesses that are relatively different. So what I think will be a good idea is to try to study in more detail what are the specificities of these type of aspects when you apply them to a research institution. So having said that, I think I want to show you my lab. This is a group of people, of talented individuals, different levels of development. But as you can see, they are happy, and I think in part it's because science is very exciting. But at the same time, I think I'm contributing to the development of these individuals and creating the right environment for them to excel and to succeed. And with this, I think I'm going to close my comments here, and I will be open to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Antonio. I will now hand you over to Angela Single, Clinical Strategist.
Hi, I'm Angela Single, and I'm a qualified district nurse, general nurse, and I have a degree in health service management. I've had a 30-year history of working in and with the NHS, and my most recent role is I was clinical director for BT Global Services for 4 years. I left that role in October 2014, and I'm currently now working as a freelance consultant, specializing in supporting health tech startups and also finishing my Executive MBA. And so it's quite a good time to have a flexible time to both do my studies and set up a freelance consulting. As I said, I've had a career of 30 years working with the NHS, in and with the NHS, and my NHS history is I was obviously a community nurse, a district nurse, but went into management. I ran a discharge support service. I then became a senior directorate manager of acute services at Hinchley NHS Trust, and my last NHS job was I was deputy chief nurse at North Middlesex in London. After that, I was approached by Nesta Healthcare PLC, and I became the managing director of I was a managing director of Nesta Healthwatch and Nesta Prime Care, both of which services were set up by myself, and we supported patients in the community with technology. And at that point, I became very passionate about the use of technology in healthcare and how we can support patients at home. More recently, I've been asked to chair the industry group of the 3 Million Lives Department of Health 3 Million Lives initiative, and that group was a group of 25 companies who came together to move forward the digital agenda to get more patients to use technology both in the community and get clinicians to adopt it in their hospital and GP practice. I've always been really interested in health service management, hence I did a bachelor's honours on health service management. That was my initial degree. And I've always wanted to do an MBA and felt that that was the right thing to do after doing the health service management degree. The reason I haven't done an MBA up to now was about the time in my life. I've a mum of 2 children. I've had a very busy career life, and I've always worked full time as well as raising my family. But actually it came to a point in my career that I found it was really right to really update my skills, think about what I wanted to do next in my career, and think about perhaps transferring from being very much seen as a clinical role into much more a healthcare business role and pure healthcare business rather than having that clinical element to my job. And so in terms of why now, it just seemed the right time. I felt that I was perhaps stagnating a bit in my career. And the Executive MBA sprung out to me as I was on a train one day, coming back from King's Cross, where I saw an advert. And it was actually Abbs was on the advert. And for me, that was really quite revealing, the fact that he was not only a doctor, but was undertaking an Executive MBA at Cambridge. The minute I walked into the open evening, at Cambridge, I just knew that Cambridge was the right place for me. It had the right mix of theoretical knowledge, also had the right mix of ambience. So I loved the dynamic teachers, the dynamic lecturers. I loved the fact that it was so practical, that there had been a wide range of alumni before me, and also that they were encouraging more clinicians and more people working in the health service to move across to do an Executive MBA. I consider the Executive MBA at Cambridge is a most amazing course, and I know it sounds very niche-like, but it has for me been life-changing, both in the whole environment of Cambridge, that you're matriculated, that you have the most amazing dinners and the most amazing ambience and colleges, also that you mix with an absolutely inspirational team of people, both in your lecturers, but also your other college students. And there's 55 of us in our group, and they come from a wide range of backgrounds and expertise. And one of the things that I think is amazing is that in my day-to-day life, I wouldn't have any reason to interrogate or be part of or come across investor bankers, people that work in the oil and gas industry, people that work in the city, etc., etc. And this gives you exposure to those types of individuals who are as passionate and committed to doing the Executive MBA as you are. As I come to the end of the EMBA, I'm graduating hopefully in 3 months' time. I look back and see how much I've learned and how much I have changed as a person undertaking this course. And I know that I will never look back now, and that I have all the tools and all of the confidence which I think the Cambridge EMBA gives you to now move into the next phase of my career development. I've decided to become an entrepreneur and work alongside with tech startups. And I know that I would never have thought or never had the confidence or the tools and competencies to do that if I hadn't done the Executive MBA. So right now in my life, I'm very excited about the future, really excited about building the next part of my career journey, and can't thank the executive team and the team at JBS for having that opportunity to take my career journey into the next steps and look forward to the future. Thanks very much now. I'll hand back to the chair.
Thanks, guys. Some insightful presentations there. We've already had a number of questions coming through, but please do keep them coming. I'm going to open the floor, and Ian, I think this one might be for you. So I've got a question here. Approximately how many hours a week did you need to spend studying?
Well, I'll start that if that's okay, and then ask Angela and Antonio, who are live students at the moment. I think that the recommendation, let's start with that, is about 20 hours per week. But for me in my current position, I couldn't do that regularly each week. So I probably had a background of about probably an hour a day, so 7 hours a day, 7 hours a week as background, but then more intense bursts, certainly prior to the Cambridge weekends, and also associated with the assignments and particularly associated with the project. So I had to stage some of my leave to make sure that I got through the individual project. But I don't know if that's similar to my current colleagues.
So I found it goes in peaks and troughs, as Ian said. So at certain periods of the course, it's more intense than others. So particularly in the beginning of the course, it's very intense as the class is brought up to the same level around things like corporate governance, corporate finance, accountancy. Then perhaps in the summer you tend to lull a bit and you do a lot more reading, I found. And then we're at a very intense stage of our course where we're finishing off assignments and also our individual projects. So it does go to peaks and troughs, and you just have to prioritise really. If it's something that you want to do, then you'll definitely find time in your week to do it.
I think the other issue is that when you're doing it, you're not counting the hours. It's a problem of the limitation of the hours that you have. But then I think in my experience, what happens sometimes is that you would like to dedicate more time because you feel that if you don't do this, you're not getting as much as you could get. So in this respect, I think in my case, I probably spend like between 15 and 20 hours as an average. That didn't mean that I could do this regularly. They have some bursts of periods of time where I need to concentrate. And the other factor is, what is your previous background? I mean, if you have a background, there are some aspects of the program that you may be more confident with, that you may deal with less hours. But if you don't know anything about corporate finances, then you need to invest a little more than you will expect. The other thing that is very positive is that you're always paired for some specific type of area that you're not very competent with other people that may have more competency, and then you're learning also from your peers. And I find this very helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So
All right, guys, thanks very much for that. Again, I think this one may apply to all three of you, but I'm sure that you can form an orderly queue. Guys, I've got a question here. When choosing which business school to do an EMBA, what was the most important thing for you all to sort of consider individually?
Well, why don't I try and start that question? I think the first thing that I was looking for was an academic sound basis, somewhere that would actually look at the evidence base for certain actions within certain areas in the business world, rather similarly that most of us would look for an evidence base in our clinical work. I looked at a number of business schools, mainly in Europe. Cambridge has quite a background in health, and for some time there were very strong linkages with something called the Cambridge Health Network, which brings together both clinicians and people from business life to discuss issues of health relevance. So that's quite important, and I think there is a more of a focus perhaps towards health than in some of the business schools, which perhaps are more focused towards finance, so for example LBS or CAS in London. And also when looking for a school, I need to look for someone that was going to fit with my work commitments. Some colleagues actually, when they were here, did decide to take a work break, but I continued to work through it. So it was a combination really of the academic basis, some elements of health experience in Cambridge, and also some element of convenience. So I don't know if Tony or Angela.
So I wanted to really look at the quality of the teaching. So if any of you have been on one of the events, you'll get a mini lecture, and for me that was a really important part of this, because we spend time in school, time in listening to the lectures. I wanted to have lectures that really I could connect with, and I found them extremely high quality, but also ones that I really felt I could understand and connect with. I also wanted a school that had an international business focus, that it was looking at a wide look at global business, and we certainly do have that on our colleagues as students. So we have 55 students in our current class, and they're from all around the world, including Australia, China, etc., because I'm really interested in global business development. And the third thing was, like Ian said, did it fit around my needs in terms of the way that it was structured? But also, I just walked into the school and felt this was the place I wanted to do. It has a great dynamic feel to it, and also it has a rounded approach. It's not just purely based on finance, and I wanted a rounded approach that was looking at all the tools and skills that you needed, not just pure finance. Tony?
So in my case, I have a bias because I'm a faculty at this university. So I think that is an important thing you need to know. But having said that, I mean, it was very convenient for me. I cannot just leave my laboratory and disappear for a year and then come back, and research is research intensive and you need to be there. Second, Cambridge is in the middle of an area where there's a lot of science, a lot of biotech companies, and I think this business school is excellent from the point of view of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of entrepreneurial activities here. So I think it would be difficult for me to find any other place in Europe where I can find this type of concentration of science and health together. So that by itself was an important incentive of doing this here. And obviously, being an academic at this university, I can say that it's a very good university. So in this respect, I think the quality of the teaching is unparalleled. And having been exposed to other universities before I landed here, I'm not trying to get a raise in my salary, but I will say that this is a great university to do it. So I think all this together, I thought that that was the best solution for my needs. And now that I'm at the end of the program, I can confirm that my selection was appropriate, although you need to take this with the reservations of my conflict of interest. Okay?
Thanks, guys. Some valuable information there. This one may well apply to all three again. I'm going to phrase it slightly different for you, Ian. There's a question here. What part of the program did you / are you finding the most valuable?
Well, if I start, and then having sort of come to the end of the program last year, probably three elements that have been most useful to me. Certainly the strategy component. Strategy is very strong, I think, in the Cambridge program. And looking at an academic approach to strategy certainly helped me in developing my thinking and then our organization's thinking as we position ourselves in what is an international competitive healthcare market, remembering that healthcare as an industry is now one of the largest industries globally. So we see ourselves as a global competitor in the healthcare market, and devising strategy for that requires, I think, a step outside the traditional. I think the second thing are some of the elements of what one might describe as organizational behavior, and which might stretch from negotiation to the understanding of the dynamics of teams to getting to yes. And that's a skill which I think increasingly as we work in collaborative environments is an important skill to have. And then probably the third thing for me is quite specific around the IP. I looked at regulation in the English healthcare system as it applies to mergers, which is a particular issue, and anyone that's a student of the English healthcare environment will understand the issues to do with the competition regulations, the regulations of other organizations such as Monitor, and how that's going to be important as, again, in the English healthcare context, the 5-year forward view plays out a new models of care. So that's directly relevant to what I'm doing at the moment. So those are my three key areas.
So I'll follow on from the framework of 3 areas. So we are just in the stage of our program where we're going into what's called our electives. So Tony and I are doing our electives this week, where you can choose subjects that are particularly of interest to you. So that's part of the course I'm really looking forward to, and I think that gives you an opportunity to delve into some areas which perhaps the course doesn't give you. But the other areas that I've really enjoyed is looking, as Tony says, about the entrepreneurship, and Cambridge has this strong element of entrepreneurialism, and it has an accelerator for supporting new businesses, and linked to that is the innovation area. And so it gives you a real focus on thinking about your industry, how you can be innovative in your industry, and how you can take that forward to entrepreneurialism. And then finally, personally, you have executive coaches that support your career planning, your career goals. And I know if I hadn't done that part of the course, I wouldn't be on to the next stage of my journey. So those are the areas that spring out to me.
Okay. For me, I think there's a difference between being useful and enjoying it. That's a big difference, I would like to say. I mean, in this course, I would say the things that have been useful and I have enjoyed are related to strategy, innovation. These are key concepts that we need. We hear a lot about them, but we don't know the real concept behind this. Also, the concept of entrepreneurship, and that was very important, and aspects related to organization behavior. I mean, I like this concept that you can be in the top 10% of your managerial skills, but in order to go to the 2%, you need to master your ability to understand the behavior of people. So that is very important. For me, the other aspect that was very helpful is China. I've been working or trying to understand China from many different points of view through different type of areas. I think it is, although I'm interested in science, I thought it was very important to understand the culture of the Chinese, and also working with colleagues from China in my class, and actually making me more aware of the soft aspect of interacting with them. That is going to help the way how we interact and we do research with them. And then there is another thing. I mean, as a scientist, over the last 15 years, I've been working in things that were smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I may have been working in something that was the smallest thing that you could imagine, and that was the most important thing of my life. But actually, attending to this course gives you another perspective about life. It's like you recover the global perspective. Mentioning aspects like macroeconomics has been very helpful. I mean, maybe not useful, but I really enjoyed them. And other concepts are that you may be familiarized by reading the newspaper, but you don't really know what you're talking about. From this point of view, I think being super specialized in science can make you out of touch with the rest of the reality. And I found this really enjoyable. I think people around me have realized that in some way this is affecting my perception of the reality around me. And I think this is an aspect that an EMBA can be very helpful. In fact, before I started the EMBA, I was thinking in anthropology, sociology, these type of things, because I was interested in going back to the human being at a different perspective. And someone told me, go for an EMBA. An EMBA is all of this, real time, real action, happening in real life, with things that really matter. And that is true, is that you see all these different areas at a level that maybe is not as deep as you need as a specialist, but good enough to allow you to do your work more efficiently. And from this point of view, I think it's useful, although I may not apply this directly, but I think that made me have a larger view about the problem. Okay?
Okay, guys, thanks very much for that. It's kind of an opposite question, I think, so hopefully you'll not mind answering this. Question here from the audience, what was the hardest aspect of the course? I don't know who wants to kind of go first with that one.
Well, I'll start, I think. I mean, I think Tony's already picked up on a little bit. If you come from a science background, then your sort of understanding perhaps of some of the technical aspects of finance are going to be from, you're going to start with a pretty low knowledge base. And I certainly started with a pretty low knowledge base in accounting and corporate finance. And understanding that as an academic subject and trying to work with some of the equations that underpin particularly corporate finance, required me to go back to school. And I suppose that was a challenge. And I think, as Tony said, I think it's actually quite an enjoyable challenge, because it's quite enjoyable going back to an area where you're not particularly familiar and starting from scratch and having to learn to learn it. But it is actually quite tough, particularly when there are some people who are very skilled in these areas where this is their natural language, and if it's not your natural language, you are starting effectively in primary school, But I suppose the flip side of that is I got out the other end, but I'll let Tony and Angela pick up on that. I think that's the area I would focus on.
Tony and I were both in the same group for corporate finance and accounting. So, yes, I think I would totally agree with Ian. Certainly, when I did my undergrad degree, it was health service finance that I was doing, and that was very familiar to me. So to then switch to corporate finance and accounting and a different way of coming to the world, if you like, was really challenging. And also, it is very much out of your comfort zone. So as clinicians, as senior managers, we've been in our world of really knowing what we need to do and being very comfortable in the decisions we have to make. But then you come to an area where it's totally foreign and you are relying on your colleagues, your student colleagues, to support you through that learning. So, and it's also done at the beginning of the course. So you're finding your feet. Some of us have got feelings that we probably never should have been here in the first place, inferior complex. So it's grappling with feeling very comfortable in the course, feeling that you deserve to be here, and then also to do those strong subjects. But as Ian said, once you come out the other side, you feel extremely confident and know that you can tackle some of these quite difficult subjects that you never thought you'd be able to tackle. I just want to home in on macrofinance and macroeconomics. I never thought I would enjoy macroeconomics, and I would have thought that would have been the toughest subject. But actually, like Tony says, it starts enabling you to put the pieces of the world around you together. And when you have those elements together, what seems to be very tough is actually makes a lot of sense.
I think also, I mean, accounting was not exactly my preferred subject. I need to admit that. So that was tough. And corporate financing, it was tough because it was difficult, because I was alien to it. But actually, it's something that we really enjoyed, because it's important. And if you understand this, you can understand other things that are very relevant today. So I think, but obviously it's like starting something that you have never seen before. And you're sitting with a guy who's from Morgan Stanley. And I thought, wow, I'm going to be in the same class with this guy. He is an expert on this. But actually, this is very important. I mean, when I started the EMBA, I thought I need to look for an EMBA for doctors, scientists, and so on. Now I will say, no way. Probably one of the key things of this MBA is that you are surrounded by other people that have all these huge expertises in areas like financing. And these people are nice, most of them. Are nice. And these people help you, together with the faculty, to really grasp the relevance. And I think this is a key aspect of the course. So I think from this point of view, I also think it's very good that this happened at the beginning. It's like a shock treatment. You get there, and suddenly they hit you with accounting and stuff. And then after Christmas, things get better, and things get better. And you are, because you went through this, you passed exams, you get empowered. And actually, I think if you are middle-aged in this side, to go and take some exams is not something that you are used. And it's very impressive. It's like getting out of your comfort zone, and you will succeed. No, there's no question about it. You will succeed. And when you succeed on this, you feel really good, and that empowers you to go through the rest of the course at a high speed. Absolutely. I mean, this is important. And actually, even if you have doubts that you may not be able to, that you are getting a little on the other side, or you are a little, then that is a good experience, because that reinforce you to believe that actually you can do this, and just because you are more senior doesn't mean that you're not suited for this anymore. So this is something that you experience. It's a normal human feeling, but actually I would recommend to have it. It's like you say, I'm here, I'm on top of the planet, and and actually it's very good. I would really recommend it, and not to be scared. You need to go through this, and then things get better. Then you go to the softer skills, and this is where you feel very confident, because you have learned things by intuition. You never knew that this thing had sort of an evidence that supported this. You have learned on this one, but the course provides you with the rationale to understand that what you do is right, to modify this, and that gives you the confidence to be very effective. So in summary, highly recommendable.
Okay.
Okay, guys, thanks very much for that. I think what's happened is that question, or those answers rather, have naturally triggered another question. Again, it looks like one for the panel on mass rather than individual. Got a question here. Which criteria will you use in the future to gauge if the program has been successful for you?
Well, shall I have a go at starting? I mean, I think what I would say is probably three criteria. First is sort of personal, then professional, then perspective. And I think from a personal, measuring against a sort of personal ambition, I think it's already achieved what I wished for, which was to test out some of the ideas that I had, build on some ideas that I had, but also give me, importantly, some new ideas. I think Tony's said already that sometimes just testing yourself against a new set of challenges like corporate finance or accountancy is in and of itself a useful skill. And coming out at the end, graduating and going to the graduation ceremony in and of itself was a personal achievement. I think the next is professional, and I think it's starting to have impacts in my professional life, and certainly some of the tasks that I'm dealing with at the moment, I can see the direct read across from what I did in the program, particularly in the areas that I've mentioned already around strategy and the development of a healthcare business. Then I think that a test which I think will probably develop over the next couple of years will be in a sort of broader perspective. I think if you'd said to me probably 5 years ago, would I consider leaving England to join an international healthcare company or work in a healthcare organization overseas, either with the third sector or in a corporate sense, I probably would have been quite thoughtful about it. Now I would be quite comfortable, I think, in taking that step, having recognized, I think as Angela and Tony have already said, that the world is a connected place, that although there may be some nuanced differences, much of the delivery of the sort of healthcare industry is the same globally, and certainly based particularly on the experiences from Judge, but also the experiences with my classmates, feeling that I would be able to function in that environment, I think quite well. That's still to be tested. I think I've answered the first two questions on my personal and my professional life. I think I've still got a couple of questions to answer around the broader perspective, but those are my three criteria.
Thank you. For me, obviously we're coming to the end of our course, but already the course has given me the confidence to strike out to reach my career goals, which my career goals was to maximize my career, to be able to develop, if you like, a third career in my life. I've already been a clinician and I've been a senior manager in the NHS and in the independent sector, but it's now then thinking about what's my next career move, and this certainly has already given me the confidence to do that, to go and find my next part of my career. And I think we've mentioned it already, that this course does give you a huge amount of confidence because you know that you've got tools and knowledge that you can pull on to develop your career further. The other thing it gave me, and I already thought I had a pretty big network already, this gives you an amazing network, both in your class colleagues, but also here at Cambridge. And we do live in a connected world in terms of communication, but we also live in a very connected world in terms of people. And I know that if I need to go and research something, or if I need an expert in a particular area that I might be working in the future, I know that both here in Cambridge, between faculty, between my classmates, but also other parts of Cambridge, I know that I've got a network of people that I would have never imagined that I could pull on. And that is, I think, is priceless in itself. And I think it's the opportunity to keep on learning, and that as well is really satisfying at this time in your life. And that, I think, the course has given me a new thirst for knowledge and a new hunger for academic knowledge. And that, for me, I never set out to do, but it's what it's given me.
Okay. For me, I think at a personal level, I'm satisfied. I'm happy about this course. At professional level, I think there is an impact there. And the impact there is coming not because you have a title, not because you have an MBA at the end of this. It's because when you say something, people listen because you're saying something that makes sense. And I'm not saying that the rest of the people don't say things that they don't make sense, but what I'm saying is that you know that what you're saying is relevant, and they will listen to you for what you say, not because you have an MBA attached to it. In fact, some people may perceive that as something negative with respect to us. At personal level, I mean, what I would like to do is to direct an ambitious research-intensive institution. And for this, I think two things are important. Number one is you need to have the credibility, the scientific credibility in front of your peers. And what the MBA is giving to me is also the credibility that I may manage them with some kind of scientific approach that may give us some advantage. It's all about to be able to be competitive in a very difficult environment where globalization makes research institutions at this present moment struggling to try to maintain their top position. For me, this is what really attracts me, and I will look for opportunities. The changes that originally I was looking at this extremely parochially, local level, but now the horizon has changed. I don't know exactly what is going to happen, but the opportunities are there, and then the barrier that you could put yourself to take your opportunities probably is gone. So that means I'm confident about the possibility of doing something that I will really like to do. It's my personal project. As doctors say, is my personal project would be to try to use all this knowledge to make the best science and the best environment and be extremely competitive. And this is what really turned me on. I don't know if I will do it, or no, it depends on the opportunities, but that will not be because I will not try.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Thanks very much for today. I'm going to now have to move to close the webinar. I've tried to get through as many of today's questions as possible, but if I have missed yours, please don't worry. I will share them with the course program director, who I'm sure will be keen to follow up with you offline. Just to let everybody know, Judge will be at the FMLM conference in Manchester on the 24th and 25th of February, and are also hosting information sessions in Cambridge and London next month with presentations again by the program director. I think you can find details of those on the website. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you all for joining. Thanks again to today's speakers.
And we look forward to welcoming you on to another IGov webinar soon. Thanks very much. Good evening.